Hello and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey, and as always, I'm joined by SamProof, and I can see a cat in the background, so we're already off to a good start. Today on the show, we're going to be talking all about 4 really awesome free video tools that you might like to have a look at in terms of your own content creation goals. There's one in particular, or a couple in particular, I'm really psyched to talk about today, because the more I play with them, the more exciting features I sort of happen upon. But we are going out live to all the various places, so make sure you hit that magical join the chat and let us know where. In fact, this is the button I'm looking for. Hashtag Team Live if you're watching live, or hashtag Team Replay, and we'll get stuck into those comments in just a second. But Sam, how are things going? How's your week been?
Good. Yesterday was Halloween, so it was a big family day for us. We actually went back to our old neighborhood to trick or treat, because it's just a bunch of apartments around here, so it's not really exciting or fun. But yeah, it was good. We saw a bunch of the old neighbors and got to talk to them and complain about apartment living and all of that. And the girls ended up with 2 giant treat bags full of candy, which is way more candy than I think any one person needs. But yeah, for the most part, everyone's doing really good. How's everything with you?
Everything's going okay with me, and it's so funny to have the cat on the stream. But anyway, Sayed's saying hello from Germany. I think it's my first time joining the stream on a Friday. This feels so confusing. Oh. Well, it's probably it'll be less confusing next week, because of time zone differences, it's gonna switch again. So just keep your eyes out for those changes. Yeah. I was a little confused by some other things happening in the chat, but it looks like it's one of your chat bots, so I won't worry about that too much.
Yeah, I shut that down. It shouldn't happen anymore.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's get stuck into today's show and our content, because we do want to talk about some free tools. And I just want to say up front, free can mean a lot of different things in terms of software, and some of these things are sort of free trials, and they'll give you a number of features, or a limited number of time, or maybe they'll put a watermark on top of your final creation. And some of them are free and open source. Some of them are just wonderful developers donating the things that they've created to scratch their own itch. And we do love developers for that when they do that. But today we are going to be talking about 4 video tools that are free that we love. First of all, we're going to talk about CapCut, then DaVinci Resolve, then Shutter Encoder, and finally VLC Media Player. And yeah. I think let's start with CapCut, Sam, because I know this is something that you use a lot, and we do kind of recommend, especially to beginners, because it is pretty user friendly, but it's also it also has a lot of features for a free piece of software.
Yeah, for sure. So anyone who's not familiar with it, CapCut is a free editing software that is created by ByteDance, the people who brought you TikTok, and I think a lot of people automatically hear that association and think this is just a TikTok editing tool, but it's not. You can use this for any video, like any format. It changes aspect ratios. You can 9:16, 16:9, 1:1. You can put in custom aspect ratios and all of that sort of thing. I've used it for both shorts videos and long form videos. I don't know that I necessarily want to cut a movie on here, but given a good enough computer, I think you totally could if you wanted. And it has a bunch of great features, and you can use it. Again, it is free. There is a pro version that unlocks a bunch of other features, but you can do everything you need to do with just that basic free version, and it's very powerful. So CapCut is available for both Windows or Mac. It's available on iOS or Android, and there is also a browser-based version. So if you need to do stuff in the cloud, you can also do it from a remote system somewhere, and you can link all of those things together and send projects to yourself through their cloud account, which is really cool. So you can get that through any of the app stores or their website directly, and just download that easily. So some of the really cool features that I think CapCut has that's available to everyone is just straight out the basic editing features. And I think they have a really great UI for beginning editors. So like it's laid out very similar to a lot of the more popular uh, timeline based editors, like your Adobe Premiere, your Final Cut, things like that. So anyone who's done one of those has a pretty seamless transition. I myself was a big Adobe Premiere editor. I also did a little Avid back in the day for those diehard Hollywood types who like wanted to spend way too much money on software. But transitioning to CapCut was so much easier for me than something like DaVinci Resolve, which John's going to talk about next, which I still haven't wrapped my head around some of those, UI things that I've uninstalled and reinstalled multiple times. I think CapCut just has a really intuitive design. It has, some built-in quick, tips on here's how you can do it. There's a ton of videos out there and things like that. And you can even see we've got our own video in the annals of our archive where we do a little deeper dive on CapCut versus Camtasia, and I think we've showed some other stuff in other videos, so you can find that. So yeah, it has all the basic editing tools you could need, whereas a lot of free software does more sort of just trimming. This gives you just a world of all of the possible tools. You do trim, you can splice, you can extract audio from your video, which is very useful. It does transitions and all of that sort of stuff. Like really name something in the chat you need from an editing software, and I'll probably say, yes, it does that. One of the more advanced and still free things that it does is a sort of background removal green screen concept feature, which very useful, especially in today's TikTok day and age of like trying to make things flashy and snappy and stand out. It's very it's super easy to do, and again that works on desktop or mobile. Like almost everything has parity from one version to the other. The browser-based version, I think, is sort of the last to catch up on some of the features. And sometimes the mobile is actually the first to get the things over desktop even. But yeah, that being said, yeah, you've got background removal, so you can do some really cool tricks. You can make a more presenter style video for educational type things, or you can do some really Doctor Who-esque sketch comedy things where you're talking to yourself and you're in the same scene and whatnot. It has, auto captions, which takes what you're saying and turns it into captions on your screen with a bunch of free and pro styles available. I will say that in the recent months, the auto captions on at least desktop have now a limited use. So I think you get like 3 of those a month, which is weird. It's weird because it doesn't matter how long the video is. I could put a 20-minute video in or 3 10-second videos, and that's it. But I think it's still free on the mobile version. I don't think there's a limit to it. So that is one caveat I would say, where that is a super useful tool that I used quite a bit, and now they've put a little limit on that, at least for the desktop.
I must admit, as awesome as CapCut is, I do think some of those features are very slowly and quietly moving to paid options. But
yeah,
I did want to just pick up on it, and you did mention this, but I kind of want to call it out because I think you mentioned it ever so casually, and I think it's kind of like it blows my mind that this is a thing. But I've got CapCut open here, and I don't use CapCut all the time as my regular video editor. But this thing that Sam alluded to is that you have these things called spaces, and you can literally set up different accounts for different things. And it gives you a certain amount of gigabytes for free, so you can share files between different users, between different devices, and that in itself is kind of amazing. I know Cher is in the audience today. Hello, good morning. I think it's still morning in New Zealand. So I'm just going to open up something that I did with one of somebody that she works for. And this is actually something where I just wanted to make a short, and this actually is just a static image from an audio recording, and I just sort of captioned it and you know, branded a little bit. And admittedly, I personally grabbed these captions from another tool and sort of brought them into here. So, because I guess the thing that I don't personally love about the auto captions in CapCut is they don't really understand punctuation. Like, it is all just lowercase stuff all the time. But that said, like, this was very, very easy to do and to put together. And yeah, I think it's a really great place to start. And again, if you are sort of just getting started in the world of video, it's a really great place to start, and it can do a lot of things. The other thing I did want to mention too is on the phone version, at least on the Android version, I imagine it's probably the same on iOS, but I haven't been able to try this, is that it'll literally give you a little teleprompter that you can type your text in, and you can hold your phone in front of yourself and just literally read it while looking at the camera. So again, it all depends on how you personally want to use the software itself. But yeah, that's, you know, it's really wonderful. It's a great place to start. So Share is written here. I started off a long time ago using UCut on my cell phone for edits, which I found great. But with the arrival of CapCut and TikTok editing, I've, for the most part, just forgotten about it. And I must admit, UCut is something I still occasionally use, not really for my content, just for personal things, because it is very, very easy. But it's a good way to get started. Hello to CG, who's joining us as well. Great to have your company today. And hello to Michelle Day Raymond as well, who's just celebrated recording 150 episodes of a podcast, which is amazing. It's amazing. All right. Say does have a question for you, and I suspect the answer is no, but let's entertain it anyway. He writes, I know you can install and create plugins for DaVinci. Can you extend CapCut in a similar way?
Not really. What kind of features do the plugins expand on? Like, there's a lot of like I said, there's a lot of stuff under the Pro version, but it's generally just unlocking more things that you already have and just different templates and flavors of those things. The only actual features is, like, you know, the extended amounts of the auto caption, and then this thing called Smart Crop, where you can take a 16:9, and when you're rendering it, it will also render a 9:16 version of that, but that's all built in. It's not a plugin. It's just an unlocked feature at that point.
And I think that's the thing. Those additional features are coming from ByteDance themselves, whereas in the DaVinci Resolve world, like, anyone can sort of create anything and share it. So that said, CapCut does have a lot of sort of TikTok-esque templates that the people can create and use and share. And I think you've even created some of your own, Sam. So, you know, there are ways of doing it. It's probably not quite as advanced as DaVinci Resolve, but again, you know, there's that trade-off between ease and use and you know, sort of flexibility. Cher does ask, do you think the Pro version is worth it in CapCut?
You know, I haven't gotten to the point where I thought I needed it just yet, and part of that is based on how often I'm making videos, and I just don't think I'm personally at the point with either of my channels that I need to unlock auto captions, because for the most part, I'm doing a lot of shorts videos and like 1 or 2 long form videos that I would actually use the auto captions on. There are occasionally transitions or other effects that I'm like, I might use that if I paid for it, but I'm not, you know, I'm not like, oh damn, why can't I have a twilight going on right now? Like, it's guess I'm just gonna have to go with this fade. So not yet, but it's also relatively affordable compared to a lot of the other sort of Pro versions of things.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head what it is, and I might even just see if I can look it up, but I think it's just a monthly subscription, like a lot of things in life these days. Yeah,
it is.
Let me just see if I can find out how much that is while we're talking. It's probably buried somewhere. Solutions.
Well, you can throw Jeremy's question on while you look for that.
Okay, sure. There we go. So
right,
Jeremy asks, is CapCut similar to Premiere Pro?
So in a lot of ways, the basic UI has a very similar feel to it, I think, and it does a lot of the same functionality. It gives you those keyboard shortcuts, and it actually has 3 presets for those keyboard shortcuts that you can pick from, and one of them parrots what Premiere does. The other one, I believe, is basically the hotkeys for Final Cut, and they have their own default ones, but you can modify all of them. I think Premiere is a much more powerful program. It does a lot of other things. It definitely has a lot more hotkeys than CapCut does. And one of the things I think Premiere does better than CapCut, aside from charging you a lot more money, is its ability to sort of have multiple projects or multiple timelines within one project is one thing that I really do miss in CapCut. Whereas when I'm trying to do the same video but different for the next week, I either overwrite the pre-existing project or duplicate it to make a new one. Whereas with Premiere, I can just duplicate the sequence and make those changes there, and then I know everything that is that video style is all in the same place, and I can always access it. The other thing is CapCut handles the media library a little bit differently. You can still bring in things and put them into folders and stuff, but because of that sort of same nature of I have to make a new project every time, I'm kind of importing things multiple times. So that's where I think Premiere does excel.
Awesome. Okay, so getting back to that earlier question of how much this all costs, and again, it's probably going to be different in different currencies, but it's telling me $14.99 per month and $139.99 per year, and you'll get a whole bunch of different premium effects and things that are thrown in there as well. One thing that is honestly kind of interesting, and I don't know if this still happens, but previously, when I would export my video, it would actually show me how it would automatically recut this from horizontal to vertical or vice versa. Right. So, I mean, if that's something that you're doing, that could almost pay for itself very, very quickly. Yeah. But again, try out the free version and I guess see how you go.
Yeah, and that's the smart crop thing I was talking about earlier. But I'll give you a little hint here. If you install a little program called, wait, where is it? What's it called? It's like tree file extension or something like that. If you're on a PC, tree size free, you can find the path to where it generates that smart crop, and there's no watermark on it. You just get that. It'll render it and then try to upsell you Pro, but it stores it on your machine, so you can get that.
Okay, I did not know that was a thing, so we might need to explore that at some point.
But I mean, if you close the export window before it renders the smart crop, it won't save it.
Okay.
But yeah, if you let it go, it's there.
Wow, that's really, really interesting. All right, on that note, we're going to go to our first promo, but we are talking about for free video tools that you might like to consider using in your workflow. This is the Video and Live Streaming Show.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a promo for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at cuteavalanche.com. And it's funny, Sam sort of, if you're listening to the audio version of this, Sam was patting the cat that pops up in the promo. So that's certainly something to look out for, and definitely check that out if you're watching on YouTube. All right, so this is the video and live streaming show. I'm going to close out of CapCut because we've already spoken about that. But today on the show, we're talking about 4 free video tools that you might like to play with. And I'm going to bring Sayed's comment up from earlier. He writes, I use DaVinci and Shutter Encoder a lot. I still don't understand how DaVinci is free. I also don't understand how DaVinci is free. It's kind of fascinating, and there's a lot of people that are moving away from Adobe for a whole bunch of reasons that I won't even get into right now. But I just love the fact that this software exists, and I'll be the first person to admit it's been on my to-do list to learn this software for a really long time, and it's only just in the last couple of months that I've really gotten involved with this properly. But let me just share my screen and talk you through some of this. So this is DaVinci Resolve, and I guess the first thing I would say is just make sure that your computer can handle this, because it is a little bit more intensive than, say, our CapCut software. And I really wanted to share some system requirements from Blackmagic, which is the company that created DaVinci Resolve, but I just couldn't find any. But essentially what we can do, if I go in and open one of these projects, we have a whole bunch of different tabs down the bottom here. So we've got our media, we've got our cut tab, we've got our edit tab, which is what we're currently on. We've got Fusion, and I'll talk about Fusion in a second. We've got color grading, which is something I've never done in my life. But, you know, if you are, you know, I think one of the things Sam said was if you're cutting a movie, CapCut may not be the way to go. But I think in some ways, DaVinci Resolve may be a good option, because the fact that it includes color in that way is really awesome. There's Fairlight, for all the audio stuff. And finally, the little rocket ship, which is the Deliver tab, which is how you render the video. And I guess the fact that we've got all of these different components in this one program is in and of itself, perhaps. What am I trying to say? I haven't had enough coffee. But I love the fact that all these different things traditionally would have been their own separate programs, and the fact that they're all brought in together is kind of amazing. So it could be something that, okay, the cut tab is really interesting. And again, I'm going to level with you. I haven't completely wrapped my head around this, but it's, if you have a whole bunch of footage from different places, there are tools in here that you can actually just really speed up your process, just cut things together, throw them on the timeline, and then actually go into the edit tab to sort of do this with a little bit more nuance. And the thing that I've got on the screen here is literally just recordings of Sam and I from a previous show. I haven't really done a whole lot with this, except sort of add captions that I've been able to burn in. And it's funny, as I sort of flick through this timeline, I can hear the audio back, which is kind of confusing and annoying, but it is what it is. But we've got that as well. But I think the fact that we can export this, it's got a whole bunch of different options. We can use vertical or horizontal resolutions. We've got all kinds of different formats. And this is the thing that I love about this, is that, and I'll show you this in a second, and I know some of you have been watching my other streams, so you'll already have a sense of this, but the fact that I can sort of export into QuickTime format with transparent backgrounds has been a game changer for me creating assets for OBS Studio. So I do have those options there. We've got things with captions, the subtitles. We can sort of have these as separate files, as embedded captions, or burnt into the video. So you have those different options. And in some ways, that's actually what I used to use CapCut for. Was I would edit in Camtasia, and I have a complex relationship with Camtasia, which is a whole other episode. We won't get into it right now. But I would basically put together my video, I'd export it, and I'd bring it into CapCut to stylize these captions in the video itself that are actually burnt on. And I just tried. This is literally the first time I've done one of these in DaVinci, and it was so easy and it was so straightforward, and I have sort of all the same sort of options that I would have in CapCut in terms of actually stylizing these. And again, I do want to call out the fact that I am creating these captions in another piece of software, which is called, I've already forgotten, Happy Scribe. So that's something I bought on AppSumo years ago, and I just use it religiously ever since, and it's really, really cool. But let's just jump back. In fact, if I can open a recent project, we'll go to the logo stinger. And the thing about that I sort of alluded to is Fusion. And Fusion is this amazing thing that's really, it's built around keyframe animation and the ability to sort of toggle properties on and off and change things. And it's, in some ways, this is the last place I would recommend most people start, but it's the thing that I've been personally super invested in lately because of that ability to create those assets that I can bring into OBS. So this one, for example, it may be a little hard to see on the screen, but essentially I've got a transparent background. I click a button, a version of my logo comes in, and then it sort of gets inverted and goes out again. So I've done things like that. I guess the other thing that's worth calling out is that even you know, these banners that I put on the screen in the show for like just kidding around and build a presentation muscle, they're also built in Fusion. And again, I'm not going to lie, there is definitely a learning curve here, but it wasn't quite as scary as I was imagining. So I was really excited to sort of put it through its paces and try that out. And again, I guess getting back to what Saeed said earlier, the fact that this is free is mind-boggling because this is really industry-level software. This is not just for beginners, but I think on some way it's really important that you make this kind of software available to beginners because the only way they'll become professionals is if they have some interaction with software like this. So I just wanted to call that out. And there's a whole bunch of, again, I've barely scratched the surface of the edit tab. There are so many amazing filters and things that are brought in here. Let me just try and wrangle these as well. Again, it's probably not the greatest example to use it with this particular project, but seeing as this is the one I've already got in here, you know, we've got all kinds of things that we can add. So even if I, in fact, I'm literally toggling over that and it's giving me a sense of what that will look like. So I'm just wondering, like, in fact, I can search for this. So if I just go to glitch, for example, and I've got digital glitch, I can drag this and drop it on top of my project.
Nice.
And if I go back to the beginning, it'll sort of come in, very glitchy, and it should go out again. Although again, that's probably not a great example. It'd be better if it was a real video rather than just a Fusion composition. But it is genuinely mind-boggling just how good this is. So I just wanted to bring that one to your attention. I guess the only thing I would say is, you know, there is that learning curve. And also, I think DaVinci Resolve is a little bit more resource intensive. Certainly, every time I've had to install it or run an update, I do need to download a 3 gigabyte file. So just make sure your internet can handle that, first of all. And again, to me, it's a lot like OBS Studio itself in the sense that it is this rocket ship that can do everything. But I think a lot of people would be super easily served by just hanging out in the edit tab, dragging and dropping their clips around, cutting them, and, you know, maybe adding some of those effects. Share does...
I mean, it's basically the entirety of the Adobe suite with, like, you know, Premiere and After Effects and just everything. It's so much.
yeah, absolutely. Share writes, I tried DaVinci a couple of years ago back as a beginner and quickly realized it was well over my head, but I think I'll definitely go back to it for desktop editing. It's a powerhouse. Yeah, I think so. And again, there are lots of tutorials online. That's how I've been learning, trial and error and tutorials. And if you do want to see me sort of play with DaVinci Resolve and make a lot of mistakes and laugh at myself, definitely head over to the Learn Livestreaming YouTube channel because we've got a whole bunch of stuff happening there in terms of that. And I hope to do another one tomorrow, although I haven't decided on what I want to attempt to do tomorrow. So just watch that space. But it is like, it's mind-boggling. Just make sure your computer is sort of up to date enough to be able to handle it. And again, don't get overwhelmed because it can do a lot, but for the most part, we kind of, especially for a beginner, like just the fact that you could just stick in that edit tab. You don't even need to worry about too much else there. You could just bring your clips in, cut them, rearrange the order, add a few effects, add some text. But I guess getting back to the other thing that Saeed said was that, especially with the Fusion compositions, you can actually export those as their own sort of special thing and create templates out of the Fusion compositions you've created. So it could be maybe you have a special title treatment that you want to reuse all the time. You can actually expose certain properties within that. So different, maybe a background color or the text that's in there, and just reuse those as well. So again, the thing that I was super excited about is the ability to work with QuickTime movies with that transparency in the background for the live streaming assets. But really, even if you're just doing basic video edits, there's a lot you can do with this. So like, don't rule it out. Don't be too scared of it. Definitely have a look at it and give it a go. And like I said, YouTube University is your friend, and I've been watching all the tutorials, and sometimes I'll go, okay, that's not for me, and other times I'll go, I'm going to give that a go and see how I end up.
Nice.
All right, awesome. This is the video and live streaming show. We're going to come back and talk about Shutter Encoder, which is honestly my favorite thing at the moment. Like, it just blows my mind how many things it can do, but I'll show you that in a second. But before we do go to that break, Sade writes, I created my track matte transition for OBS in it. Took me like 15 minutes and is a great effect.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Very
All
cool.
right. We're going to come, we'll come back in just a moment. This is the video and live streaming show.
Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator.
And that's a promo for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. And again, that little banner that popped up was another Fusion animation that I've created previously. So let's talk about Shutter Encoder. And I think, Sam, you have never used this before. You didn't know what this was.
No, never. Yeah, no, I hadn't even heard of it. So I'm intrigued.
And it's funny because the thing that introduced me to Shutter Encoder, and again, this is probably only 3 or 4 weeks ago, was I was watching a DaVinci Resolve Fusion tutorial, and they were like, export your video as this QuickTime file, uncompressed, and then actually take it into Shutter Encoder and then convert it to a WebM file. And to give you a sense of what that actually does, the uncompressed 4 seconds of QuickTime video was 1.15 gigabytes. And the WebM version was like megabytes. I think it was kilobytes, actually. Like, it wasn't even megabytes. It was tiny. And, you know, it preserves that transparency. So let's talk about this. And again, this is one of those things that does so much, it kind of boggles my mind a little bit. Like, again, it's amazing that this is free. And I will say too, I think one of the developers, or maybe the sole developer of this, has seen some of our posts on Twitter recently. And I just want to say thank you to that person, because they're kind of just amazing.
Cool.
Saeed does mention Handbrake as well, which I kind of felt a little bit bad after we scheduled the show, because Handbrake does definitely get an honorable mention. It's really good in terms of converting things. And in some ways, this is a conversion program, but that's just the beginning. So if we go down, we've got this option here called Choose Function. And we've got all these options, and I'll probably resist the urge to read them all out to you. But if you're watching, you can see this. So you can actually do things with a video file without converting it at all. So you can cut it, you can replace the audio, you can rewrap it, you can conform it, you can merge, you can extract, you can do stuff with subtitles, you can do video inserts. You can sort of rip the audio out of it and convert it to a whole bunch of different formats. You can change it to different editing codecs, different output codecs, broadcast codecs, even old codecs, in case there's something really obscure that someone's given you as a source to use in your project. There's an archiving codec. You can use the image creation tool. So this is cool. You can actually just very easily open a video and just say, I want this particular frame as a JPEG. But you can also create little animated GIFs, which is really, really awesome. You can burn and rip DVDs and Blu-ray devices. They've got a whole bunch of analytics options here. So loudness and true peak for your audio, audio normalization, cut detection, black detection, media offline detection, VMAF, which is some sort of thing that Netflix created that I don't completely understand.
Oh, wow.
With great power comes great responsibility. So before I mention this last one, web video download. This will download videos from all kinds of websites. And I just want to say up front, respect people's copyright, and be a good human being.
Yeah.
But let me show you this, and I don't know that I've got an example, and the window has sort of popped up on the other screen. So let me just move this back over here where you can see it. You can literally just copy and paste a URL, and you've got these options to convert it to an MP3 or a WAV file. I'm going to literally just go to Sam's channel on a different screen that you can't see.
What?
Let's see if we've got a nice short video. I can't type SamProof today. That's not good. So while that happens in the background, let me just look at the videos. I'm doing this on another screen, by the way. So the source paradox sounds like a good candidate for this. So I can literally go and paste this URL in. You can also paste a whole bunch of URLs in separate lines if you've got a whole bunch of videos that you want to do. It'll say, you know, how do you want to download this? I just leave it on the default, but potentially up to 4K if it's available in 4K from here. I can go start function. This video is only 1 minute and 4 seconds long, so this will probably happen pretty quickly. And I kind of just let it default to the option. So it is a WebM video here, and it's just saved to my desktop, which again, I know you can't see. But like that's literally downloaded to my computer. I could come and play that. I won't play it right now. But the thing is, can we just take a moment to appreciate how easy that was and how simple that was? Yeah. And we can change it to different formats. Any of these formats from the list, I think, essentially we can sort of say, hey, make it MP4, make it a WebM, whatever we like. But the other thing too is if I go back into my choose functions and go to cut without recoding, it'll tell me that it actually wants something with keyframes on it. So perhaps what I need to do, I'm going to drag and drop this video into this list. And now we've got Sam's video here, and I can
That's my video.
It's your video. So I can literally like drag in, drag out, and export. Like, and you can just imagine all the, I don't even have the chat in front of me right now, but you can imagine all the times that Saeed has gone on other people's show and he wants to grab a little clip out of this really easily and just export it. And like that can happen like in minutes and seconds. Like that is so cool that you can do that. Again, please be respectful of people's copyright, but it is really, really awesome. And you know, maybe Sam has done this incredible video that goes for 3 hours lecturing on something. And I'm like, I love you, but I don't have time to watch that. But maybe I could convert that to an MP3 and listen to it while I go about my day or go on a walk or something. There are all kinds of options that you can wrangle with this as well. So Saeed writes, public service announcement, do not download Sam's videos without permission. Yeah, so again, and Saeed actually is someone who uses Shutter Encoder but didn't know about the web downloader. And I will tell you for free that this works on YouTube, this works on Dailymotion, this works on TikTok. It didn't work for Facebook Reels, but it is kind of amazing. And Saeed writes, this is great if you need to share a video somewhere with a file size limit. Set the limit to, say, 50 megabytes and let it do its thing. Absolutely.
Sure.
So, and that's the thing, like, you know, sometimes, and hello to Stefan, who's watching from Sweden. So we've got all these different options. And again, let me just, there's so much I can't unpack it all, but I'm so excited about this. So, you know, it could be that we just want to export that to MP3. And again, not only export it, maybe export a specific region of this. And
Can you do multiple regions, or are you limited to just one sort of trim spot?
I think it's just one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is kind of a bit of a limitation here. But again, the idea that we can do this without opening DaVinci Resolve or CapCut, like, you know, it could just be something you could do on the fly really, really quickly and simply. So I could do that, but I guess the other thing that I think would be cool is if I go, hey, I want to grab a particular thumbnail in here, maybe. Yeah. So, you know, I could go over here and, you know, I could say, hey, I wanted a JPEG. Again, I think if you have that region selected and you select the GIF, so image, and then I switch that to GIF. So again, we've got all the different graphics formats here. I think this will work. Let me try it. And again, this is probably not a reflection of the software. It's probably my lack of knowledge, but you'll see that it's doing its thing. Just underneath here, there's actually a little bar that's saying it's attempting to do its thing. The progress status is going ahead. I hope I haven't made that too long or too large, but I guess we'll find out, or I can abandon it.
But all right.
I mean, it's only a 1 minute video, so perhaps it'll be okay, but I don't know. I probably should have tested this premise before we got started, but never mind. There we go. It's doing its thing now. So the funniest paradox ever created. So, you know, you can just imagine the power of this. And like on platforms like LinkedIn, where I think if you have an animated GIF that's less than, I think, 15 seconds, but don't quote me on that, it'll just loop. Like you can work that stuff subtly into all kinds of places if you have access to those sorts of things. So I think it's doing its thing. I can see it's creating the file.
Sure, looks like it.
Again, I'm not sure. I might have created a large region, and I guess that's the only downside to that sort of clipping feature is it's not always obvious to me how much I'm actually selecting within a video. And even to play it back, as far as I could tell, you know, there was no sort of play selected region button. I had to sort of do that fairly manually. But anyway, it looks like it's nearly finished. The one thing I will say about this is it often says it's 100%, but then just give it a little bit longer, and then it will be hopefully completely done. Just going to refresh this on my computer. Maybe it is done. Okay. Let me see if I can actually open this in some sort of software. Show more file open, options, open with photos. Okay. So I may have done something wrong because it doesn't seem to want to play. But in fact, let me just grab that and bring it into a browser in case that's the issue. But I have a weird feeling, even though it's there we go. So even though it said it was 100, it technically wasn't. So let me just try this again. Show more options. Open with photos. And there we go. I've grabbed. I've got Sam as a little animated GIF. And again, I'm not even sure how long that one is, but. It's 1280 by 720. So, I mean, that's just an example of some of the things that you can do with this. And it's like the more you dig into these features and these options, you will find so many cool things. And the fact that it is literally free is just mind-boggling. And I guess the other thing, too, is that no matter what you've selected, you'll have a whole bunch of different options on this right-hand side. So if I go back to maybe... I don't know, one of these VP9 options, you'll see that we can scale the image, we can adjust the rotation, force display. We can actually, this is the thing that Saeed was sort of alluding to, we can sort of adjust these settings to get a sense of what this file size will look like. So if you know you're trying to set it via a particular chat that has a specific limitation in terms of the file size, you can adjust that too. You can crop it, you can do display timecode, file name, text. You can literally add subtitles one at a time, or you can bring in an SRT file. You can add in video, image or video watermarks. The one that I'm often reaching for in these advanced features is the preserve alpha, enable alpha channel. So that's the thing when I've got my stingers from DaVinci Resolve that sort of respects and sort of translates that transparency. So that's I can't overstate how cool this is. And the fact that it's literally free, and I believe it's available for both Windows and Mac. So definitely check this out because it is so awesome. And the more you dig, the more exciting features you will find.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember, like, I had a job where I was working for Dish Nation, which is like an entertainment news show, and like part of my job every day was to download these viral clips and things like that, and we used very expensive software to pull it off. That's amazing. Like, that's so good.
And I know there are lots of websites that will let you download videos from other websites, but they're often filled with some really dodgy advertising and really terrible things that you don't want to infect your computer with. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's something very elegant about this. And again, I just want to say for the 15th time today, respect other people's copyright. But if you do need something, this is a great way of doing it. And again, I'll use Saeed as an example, as someone who goes on a lot of people's shows. If, you know, maybe this is just another way to promote it, and I'm sure Saeed already had ways of doing this, but I think this will speed up his processes even further. He makes this point, Saeed writes, I need space on your hard drive. Just batch convert all your old videos and archive them. You can add entire folders and convert them all at once. I didn't know about the folders, so that's really, really epic. And he also writes, the video is probably not the only thing it downloads on these websites. That's true. Yes. Yeah. It's really awful because there are some really wonderful pieces of free software out there and they're just covered in advertising. And that's okay. Like, that's the choice you can make. But sometimes that advertising pretends to be a download button. And there are so many people that fall for stuff like that. It's honestly a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, and for the most part, most of those websites also burn in like a watermark of some kind.
And Kiki writes, and who knows what they're embedding into those web versions. Absolutely. So yes, just be a little bit careful. So what we're going to do now, let's talk about VLC Media Player. And admittedly, VLC Media Player is a media player, and you may be wondering, and like, it's a really good media player, don't get me wrong, but you may be wondering, like, how can this actually help me as a content creator? And I guess the first thing I want to call out about this is its relationship to OBS Studio. So if you do have OBS Studio installed on your computer and you install VLS Media Player, it will actually bring up a new source for you. And I'm just trying to bring OBS up. Okay, let me share my screen and talk you through this. Yes. So essentially what we can do, and I'm just going to create a new scene and we'll say VLC Media Player scene. So traditionally, if you want to play a video or audio through OBS, you'd go up and you'd go and select a media source and say, this is my really cool media source. I'd go and find my file and I've got all the options to play it and loop it and whatever. And that's really, really cool. But the thing about this, this VLC video source is that it'll actually let you bring in a whole bunch of different videos and you can work with playlists. And you can literally come in here and go add files and select a whole bunch of different ones. You can add different directories. So if you had a whole bunch of files that are there in the same folder, you could bring them in. You can sort of switch up the order. You can even shuffle the playlist. And again, I must admit, I'm talking predominantly in terms of video, but this could be audio. This could be music that you just have running in the background. Again, don't make me get on my copyright soapbox. Just make sure you get the licenses to actually use that in your content. But essentially, that brings that in, and that's kind of amazing. And I haven't really done it, and I might just come back to our side-by-side and talk to Sam about this. You are somebody who, you know, in terms of Qt Avalanche specifically, like, you're often resharing a lot of video content, and I'm curious, have you used VLC media sources to do this, or do you have other approaches?
Yes. Yeah, this is what we primarily use. So right now, because we're not fostering, we're running a 24/7 playlist of featured clips, and it's hundreds and hundreds of clips that are in a dedicated directory. So I have the VLC media player playlist set up as my source, and it just goes to that directory. I don't have to worry about the 100 file types and names and putting them in there. I just have that one directory linked in. And if I'm going about my day and I get new videos of just other cats and stuff like that, I can just drop them into the directory without having to go into OBS itself. And it automatically finds those changes and adds it into the rotation, which is super useful. When I was doing my coffee morning show, I had sort of a series of kind of intro videos that would happen. And one of those was a customized cold open that I would shoot usually minutes before the show started. And you don't have time in that kind of situation to update the workflow and be like, okay, I got to bring this new media source in. and like make sure that my advanced scene switcher knows that it's this thing. And, you know, so the way around that was to, again, link it to a directory. It's a one file directory, but I know that if I put it in there, everything else is going to work, right? I've deleted the old file, added today's file, and it's just going to work.
That's really clever. I just want to bring up this comment from Kiki. She writes, I had trouble when I first started to use VLC and OBS together. The trick was I had to have the 64-bit VLC installed to work with OBS.
Yes.
And to be honest, if you're using anything more recent than, I think, maybe Windows 8, you should be going with 64-bit versions of software if it's available. And, you know, I know all of my OBS plugins directories have 32 and 64-bit options. So if you're ever given that choice, opt for the 64, unless you're working with a very, very old computer. All right. So I guess the other, and you know, that in itself, I think is worth downloading this free VLC media player. But I do just want to call out a few other things that it does as well. I mean, you literally can play all your music and video and stuff here as well. You can sort of, so we can open different files, we can open different folders, we can open disks, you can open network streams and capture devices. That actually just reminded me of something I discovered about Shutter Encoder. I'll mention it if we got time. But so if I go like open caption device, you know, if you got something, you know, if I just wanted to sort of bring in one of my cameras here, I potentially could do it. I'm not going to try it live on the stream because everything could go badly. But yeah, so I mean, you could do that as well. But like even once you've opened something, you can actually convert it and save to different formats. So again, if I find a file, and I'll just move this over here, and I might even just see if I can grab Sam's video again. I think that's the right version. So, and again, as Saeed mentioned, don't go pirating Sam's content, please. If you've got a subtitle file, you could use that as well. And then we can go to these convert save options. So, you know, maybe I want to convert this to a different format. You know, I can sort of decide on what the format could be potentially. I could use one of these different profiles. And again, this is kind of the other place. What was that other one that Saeed mentioned earlier with our honorable mention? I've already forgotten what it is.
Handbrake?
Handbrake, yes. So Handbrake does a lot of this. And this is where I have this weird podcasting flashback, because a million years ago, when podcasting first was a thing, there was actually a lot of video podcasts, and you would literally have presets in, and I don't, so here, for example, so we've got video for iPod, we've got video for iPod, HD, Android, YouTube, standard definition, high definition. So we've got all these different options in here that we could potentially export to, and then you can decide where your destination file is as well. So, you know, those are just a couple of things that you can potentially go and work with as well. So I don't know that sounds as exciting as it probably should. Maybe I'm not conveying that, but for that VLC media source option in OBS is just amazing in and of itself.
And I would also say that with that, with the specifically OBS, you can also set up hotkeys. So if you're doing, you know, like a series of videos, we used to do a sort of trailer review show over at Mob Crush. So I'd have all of my trailers in a playlist, and then I had hotkeys linked to my Stream Deck, so I could like play the video, pause it, skip to the next video, or go backwards and stuff like that. So you can do all of those sort of dynamic media controls through that, which is awesome as well.
Awesome. That's really interesting, and I'm just I'll show this okay, cool. I will show this now. So just in the settings of OBS, you can go to the hotkeys, and again, if I just search for VLC, we've got all these different options here. We can sort of click in here and give this keyboard shortcut, whatever it happens to be, show and hide. There are probably other ones in here as well that I'd probably need to sort of figure out what they're actually called. In fact, it probably relates to, if I do video source 2. So yeah, I mean, there's probably a whole bunch in there. That's not something I personally use, so maybe I shouldn't get too excited trying to share that with you in real time. But I will say too, Kiki writes, I've started to use VLC to grab screenshots of videos for thumbnails. Not sure if it's the best approach, but I'm still learning. I mean, it's an option.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on how you're making those videos in the first place. Like if you're using editing software to make videos, most of those softwares, including CapCut and DaVinci, have like the ability to export a still frame. If you're just like doing a live stream and trimming it and turning that into a video, then VLC is probably an easy way to do that.
Absolutely. Business Growth Ready writes, great for podcasts on your iPad Nano. And I must admit, I know people that still use some of those old devices and they still work. I haven't had that much luck. All my iPods have died over the years. And that was kind of the one thing I did actually get from Apple back in the day, because I'm not a huge Apple fanboy, but I did have some iPods. I think I had the Shuffle. I think I had the Nano. They were pretty good devices, actually. Said writes, do you know the K-Lite codec pack? Just to ensure you can open every possible file format and codec you can think of. I genuinely don't know if Said's doing a bit or if that's a real thing. Sam, do you know?
I don't know, but it sounds reasonable.
We'll Google it later and find out. All right. I just want to, and again, I was just literally thinking about this, about Shutter Encoder, because like it's just buried into my brain. But, and I'm not sure if I can actually find this easily off the top of my head. But one thing I did kind of really accidentally stumble upon was that you can literally record video from your web cameras into this software. And I don't even remember which feature I was on to find that in the first place. I think there was just a capture option, but I probably can't find it in the next couple of minutes, so let's not dwell on it too much. But it's really mind-boggling, the kinds of stuff that you will find. Said is saying that that's a real thing. Okay, awesome.
Nice.
All right. Kiki writes,
Shutter Encoder could record a screen capture. That'd be an easier way than running two versions of OBS. I'll tell you.
Yeah. And I think again, I need to suss it out again, because I said, I've only been randomly clicking in places and just finding things and being like, how did I do that again? So I'm sure it's in there somewhere. I'll have to re-find it, and I'll let you know once I do. But I'm sure I found that, and it literally came up with like the cam link and screen capture and all kinds of weird, wonderful things. Yeah. But Kiki writes, I think I had to use that Keylight to get some of the Flash videos to play. Oh, nice. Yeah. So the FLV videos can be a problem. But again, like this is cool free software. I'd highly recommend you check out some of these things if you think they'll work for you. That said, if you're happy with what you're working with, you don't need to change. We just want you to be aware of these as sort of options in your content creation toolbox. But Sam, as we begin to wrap up, where can people find you? What's your content? Follow you on social media? All of the things.
Yeah, you can find me over at samproof.tv, and you'll find my YouTube link at the top left there with some of my other socials, and you can click on that to find that video that John stole from me. Just kidding. And if this wasn't enough cats for you, head over to cuteavalanche.com. We have a 24/7 kitten cam that you can run on just about any platform you want to watch it on.
Nice. And if you want to catch up with me, you can head over to johnlacey.com. I've got the podcast, a bunch of articles, and you'll find social links at the bottom of all those pages. I tend to hang out on YouTube and LinkedIn the most, although I do dabble in the platform formerly known as Twitter sometimes. But that's a whole other hour of therapy for another show. We have scheduled all our shows for November already, so if you want to go to the various places that we hang out, make sure you go and do that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll press another magical button here. I think Said is encouraging me to redesign that, because he decided that this animation, it's a little basic, but also the and comes in before everything else. So I might need to do that on a future stream, but we will revisit that as well. And Kiki writes, thank you. I was late to the party, but we'll be sure to watch the full stream shortly. We always appreciate you coming, Kiki. It's wonderful to have you here. The thing I will say, next week and moving forward, there's time zone changes. So wherever you are in the world, things are likely to change. So just keep an eye out for those events. And if you subscribe to the channels, you'll get notifications and things. So just keep your eye out for that. But Have a lovely week, have a lovely weekend, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.